Welcome to the American Med Spa Association podcast, Medical Spa Insider. This week, AMSA founder Alex Tiersch, President and CSO Kathy Christensen, and AMSA membership engagement and advocacy specialist Michaela Bailey are taking a look back at 300 episodes of the podcast.
Hey guys, it's Michaela from membership. And guess what? This is not a membership spotlight podcast. What are we doing today, y'all?
We're taking a look back.
That's a question I ask myself every day, Michaela.
We're taking a look back, Michaela.
So who do we have on today?
Oh boy. Well, yes, we do. We have me, Alex, CEO of AmSpa. Kathy, go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm Kathy. I'm the president and CSO of AmSpa.
And we hit 300 episodes.
That is bonkers.
I can't believe it.
Could I
remember
see-
our first episodes.
Right.
I
wasn't even here yet.
the first one. I've got that
No.
marked down as one of my favorites because it was a total shit show.
Yeah, and it was great.
But
It
it
was
was
so
great.
fun. We were like, we can't believe we're doing this.
We're sitting here in a bar with the lovely and talented Terry Ross, and we've got my sidekick, Kathy Christensen. Say hi, Kathy.
Hi, Kathy.
And we're also here with Brad Adato. Say hi, Brad. Word. Brad Adato is with the law firm of Bird Adato. Hopefully Michael can join us. Is there any chance he can come over here and join us? On it. At some point? And we're...
Yeah, that's what
So
we need.
we're actually having we're having a couple cocktails. We've been in here for addressing a couple very pressing and important matters pertaining to the future of AmSpa.
Right. I feel like you just similar to what we tell people all the time. Like you just got to kind of do it and you're going to be awful at the first time, but you'll get your bearings.
You know, everybody likes a good train wreck, right?
Totally.
Now, let's not call it that. It was better than
The
that.
first one?
The first one was a total train wreck.
Yeah, I thought
Yeah,
so.
it was.
What happened? Because I don't think I worked here yet.
Well, it was in
A bar.
Dallas.
Okay.
In Brad Adato's office away from office, which is the bar at R&D.
And it's
Right.
the same bar that he's always like, oh, you're going to see. Do you know this? He's always like, you're going to see Matthew Stafford here. Last time I was here, I saw.
I've not seen anybody.
I've never
Yeah.
seen
I've
a
never
single
seen
person
a celebrity when I hang out with
No,
them.
and
No.
he's always like, oh, just last week.
Yeah.
Just yesterday, yeah. And then so it was around the bar, and it was with Terry Ross,
Okay.
who, so shout out to Terry, because I know she's done a ton of
Yes.
podcasts
Yeah.
as well. And it's funny, because if you look at the picture on the website, I've got like 3 empty vodkas in front of me. And so we're, number one, we're relatively toasted. It was a lot of fun, but the bonus was you couldn't hear any of it because
No.
the recording was
Right.
so bad that
I've
it just
had one of
was
those.
basically, it was a really great podcast that nobody heard.
Right.
Still one of my favorites though.
Yeah, no, that was my husband was doing the audio and he listened to it and he's like, what were you guys actually thinking?
But you know what? There was something wrong with the mics too, legit, because
Yeah.
we did it in that bar again and it was much better.
Okay.
So, but that was a lot of fun. That was the first one we did.
Yeah.
What was your first one, Kathy?
that one?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I'm the new kid on the block. Well, barely. I think I started, I think they said 2021 was my first podcast episode.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Now
Yeah,
we've
we're
been
just-
doing these for over 5 years, right?
Yeah.
6 years?
2018, yeah.
It was 2018 when
2018.
we started. I feel like that was even before podcasts were,
Yeah, it was
in
because of
vogue.
us
Right.
that podcasts are really popular.
even for this industry, I don't think many people were really
No,
doing podcasts.
I think that's true.
not
Yeah.
at the time, no.
For sure.
Yeah.
Because I remember having a conversation with, I want to say it was Tim Sawyer and Louis Frazina at one of our boot camps saying,
Ooh,
let's do a
throwback.
Throwback.
podcast. And they were kicking and screaming, we don't want to do it. We don't want to. And then we ended up having a great time. So
That was
Anyway.
back in the day when we maybe had a few more drinks than we normally do.
I would
so
agree.
Yes.
these recordings were out a
Yeah.
couple hours.
yeah.
We've tamed it a little
Even
bit.
my first few, I was like, there were a lot of drinks. So I'm really glad that turned out
Oh my God.
funny.
There was one, another memorable one. It was at, I think you were at that one too, wasn't it? With, at the hotel bar with, crap, now I can't remember the names in Oak Brook.
Oh,
Yes, everyone should go back and listen to that one because it's filthy.
oh, the Christina Imes.
Christina
Christina
Imes, yes.
Imes.
Shout out to the OG Christina Imes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And her RN at the time, whose name is escaping me. but
Rhonda
she-
Polycandriotis.
Yes.
I
That-
remember, like, once you learn a name like that, you will always remember it.
Totally.
That was
Yeah.
a trip because that was tough.
That was
tough.
yeah.
I do have, before you get going, Michaela, I do have a
Okay.
couple. I want to share this because I got Eric Atienza, who works here, to give us some statistics, or a statistic, I should say.
Oh, yeah.
And now I've lost it.
Pause.
Oh, here it is. We've had so more than this now, but 690,300 listens total. Listens.
Wow.
690,300 listens.
Yep. 690,300
bananas.
total listens.
Right.
It's probably more like 692,000 since 2018, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And yeah, I found that to be pretty extraordinary.
Well, I mean, we started being able to get reservations because you kept telling them you had this podcast.
Works every time. Have you
Yeah.
tried that yet?
Yeah.
So-
Yeah. I think I
I'm
learned about
surprised,
that
not
in
surprised.
Asheville. In
Yeah.
Asheville, if you have a podcast. But yeah, actually, people love when we come to the bar and do the podcast. Like, everyone's like, oh my gosh, I remember in Atlanta and somebody was like, is there somewhere I can live stream this? And I was like, oh, we're not that famous yet.
Yeah.
The answer to that is always yes.
So as we think about these last 300 episodes, which conversations instantly come to mind and like what made them so memorable?
You go first, Kevin.
Oh, golly. You know, there are a lot of them. For some reason, when I think back to the beginning, I think we had Shelby Miller on, and we had her on. We were in our old office. We were in
Yeah.
the 6th floor, so that must have been 2018, 2019.
And she was
Yeah.
like just a wee little
She
pup.
was just a little baby then. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just the reason I remember it is I remember it being kind of, she had found so much success already, but she was also just kind of on the precipice of building what she was doing. And she, as always, is very candid and open about her challenges and things like that. And I just really enjoyed that talk with her. I think it really gave us some insight into, you know, what she was dealing with, what anyone in that situation is dealing with. And she's just a smart, amazing person. So I don't know. I always think of that one.
Okay.
We'll have to go find some clips from that one, 'cause that ought to be fun.
Yeah.
I remember that one. The one that always comes to me is, and I don't know, I do know why, and it was Dr. Trisha Bedrick, which is a name from the past, and hopefully she will hear this and she will reach out because we'd love to connect with her
Yeah,
again.
she's in Ohio, right?
She's in Ohio.
Yeah.
This was back in July of 2019. And the reason I always think of that one is her story is really indicative of how the med spa industry has developed and how people become owners. And and I just went back and listened to it just recently because I was wanting to prepare for this. She was in like a boating accident, had migraines, started getting migraine treatment finally from her neurologist used Botox, treat her migraines. She was a family practice physician at the time, started offering Botox to her patients for migraines, and someone randomly asked her, hey, do you guys do Botox? And then someone in the waiting room said the same thing. And within like a month, she had opened up her own
Wow.
practice, and now she's got like 3 locations, killing it, crazy, and no longer does any other type of medicine. And to me, it really resonated because that was, that's how it happens, right? People,
Yeah.
They have this moment and they just go for it. So that was one of them, but I've got a ton. What
Yeah,
about you?
because she was like not in a real urban setting either.
That's the other thing.
Yeah.
It's not. That's a good point because it wasn't in back then New York or wherever.
Yeah.
It was a very suburban, not very populated, and then for her to come up and get all of a sudden
Yep.
just take off like that I thought it was really cool.
Yeah.
What about you?
Mine is definitely, I would say Cameron Moskis. I had her on twice. And so I met Cameron at
Love
Seattle
Cameron.
boot camp,
Yes.
actually. And I remember being like, oh man, this girl's awesome. Like she's like a beast. Like, she was just awesome. Like, this is when I was still doing social media marketing. And she was super cool. And so I reached out to her at Atlanta boot camp And she looks at me and she goes, "We know each other." And I was like, okay, I was going to say it first, but whatever. But it was awesome because she's a PA and I think her practice had maybe been open for a year or it was coming up on a year. And she goes, what was so interesting was that when I opened up my practice, there were so many PAs she was like, that's the one thing I noticed. All these PAs were reaching out to me and congratulating me. And like, it really made me feel a sense of community. And that like really kicked off our friendship too. Like I'd followed her, but at that time, her husband was the assistant pitching coach for the Cubs. So she was coming to Chicago all the time. Like she would be like, "Hey, like I have all these business questions. Can you help me?" And I'm like, "Look at all these wonderful resources at AmSpa to help you." But yeah. And then I brought her back for Medical Spa Show for the Drive By podcast. And she just like, her and her team are just like so funny and
They're
so
incredible.
fun. Yeah.
She's like got such a drive to her.
Yeah.
And I think your like relationship with her is kind of what got her as a fam spa kind of. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Me and the podcast guests, we're like thick as thieves.
So I have a question for both of you.
Of course.
I'm sitting here thinking about it. The first time, and I think you were first when you hosted. Kathy, you hosted. I think it was maybe it was after Thank God You Did. Now that's been a blessing. Remember the first time that you did it? Were you like nervous? Think about like what questions you asked versus how you do it now. Has there been a lot of change, a lot of growth, and what do you remember about that?
Mine is actually really funny. So basically, I remember like when I started working at AmSpa and I started a podcast and I'd like listen to a couple episodes and I was like, I want to do this. Like, I really want to do this. So I would keep like elbowing you, like, wouldn't it be funny if I was on the podcast? And then one day y'all approached me and was like, oh, do you really want to do the podcast? And I was like, yeah. And it was right after COVID and I did Jackie Spagnuolo.
Yes.
And I was like, this is perfect. She just killed it during COVID, like helping us and whatnot. And me and her, she's a year younger than me. So at that time I was 26 and she was 25 and we're like, we've got to be serious. We've got to be like so dead ass. Like we can't like, we got to make sure everyone knows like we're real girls, you know? And Alex listens to it and he was like, so it's a great podcast. Cause I was like diving in, like, tell me all this deep stuff about you, you know? And Alex goes, it's a great podcast, but it's boring. He's like, no, you go, you know, you go, like you do the fun stuff, you be fun, go get a drink with the members. He's like, I'll deal with all the like boring stuff, but like, you know, the more informational stuff, like you have fun, like these are the members, like highlight them. And so like, now my questions are like completely different. I'm like, what's your zodiac sign? I'm like, what's your nickname in the practice? What's your go-to drink? Like very girly pop.
And Kathy, I feel like, because Michaela's like born for this, right?
Yep.
I feel like you were maybe dragged kicking and screaming into hosting a little bit, but I knew you would be so good at it because you're really good at whenever we talk to someone on the phone or whatever, you're always or on webinars. So I knew you'd be good at it, but have you come around to liking it?
So here's the thing about me. I'm just an introvert. I'm an introvert like naturally. So it just, I think and Michaela, correct me if I'm wrong, but I've known you for several years now. And I would say that you are an extrovert, right? So for Michaela to like get on, she's always like excited. And for me, I have to gear up a little bit more. Now, saying that, interviewing was something that I did when I was in, a writer and in magazines and things like that. I actually, believe it or not, was an intern in radio. I had my own show when I was a teenager. That's how I met my husband.
Wow. We should do a podcast on that
so
story.
Funny.
No, we don't need to do that. But it's something that I've been doing. So I would say coming back to it, I never, ever regret digging into people's like stories, and I always find myself very energized after having but for me it's like a personal like
but I feel like you're like
your shell.
You're like that in life though. Like you're like very much like we got to get to the pit of the problem. Like like what questions to ask in general. So I think you're almost like born for it too, even if it's not like crazy. Like
I totally agree. Yeah, you are. Like
you pull the pearls out. So
you know which string to pull.
Yeah, totally.
I just have to get out of my shell enough to do it. That's my thing. But how about you? Like, do you love it, Alex?
Yeah.
Because you're always. I feel like you get going and then you just. I think you could have like 3-hour podcasts if you wanted.
I probably could. And then I would take a 3-hour nap.
Right.
Because I'm kind of the same way. Like I'm very introverted, and I don't go out socially and talk to people. I tend to, so whenever like it's I've got to do a podcast, my initial gut reaction is always like, oh, I gotta. But then once I start,
Yep.
I always really enjoy it, and I start. You just kind of get lost and start talking about something. The thing that I'm always frustrated with is by the end, so minute 45, I'm like really interested in something, and then I gotta stop. So it's like, but yeah, I could. I do enjoy it. I do really enjoy it. It's fun. We've met a lot of really cool people.
Oh my
Yeah, we've
God,
met some
so
I was
awesome
going back
people.
through the list of everyone and the number of people,
Same.
and it was just like going way back,
Yeah.
way
Yeah.
back. It was cool. A lot of ones during COVID too. That was like that was the thing
Yeah.
that jumped out at me too. It's like
Mhm.
It was such a great resource, and even for us, you know, to be like, hey, everybody's still out there.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
we're here. We're just not able to go
Go
where we
out
need to go.
and
Yeah.
be around. Yeah.
yeah.
Are there any conversations you guys have had that given you like a aha moment?
So many.
No.
I can't think. No, I mean, literally everyone. A lot of times I start to put things together that I maybe have always had like a hypothesis about.
Totally.
Just from, because, you know, neither of us are practitioners. None
Exactly.
of us are practitioners. So I'm a student of that. You know, I feel like I'm kind of a student of that. So when I hear certain things, like it's funny, almost all of my favorite episodes are with practitioners because I feel like I learn a lot about them and what they're dealing with, and it solidifies for me. But
Yeah, for sure. I feel the same way. Whenever I like have a conversation with somebody and everyone approaches it a little bit differently, but it's all very much the same, right? So they're all building an aesthetic practice, but they are doing it from a different perspective in a different way.
Yeah.
And in the end, it all kind of resonates. One of the ones that I remember where I was really kind of taken aback was, I'm so bad at remembering stuff. So we'll go back and edit this, Joe, so you can get the name perfect exactly. The design.
Mitra Silva.
Mitra, yes. Mitra, who is
Seymour Designs,
amazing.
right?
Seymour Design.
Yeah.
I remember doing a podcast with her, and she just blew me away with the way she took design and intentional design, and it was just so cool. I was like, I had no idea.
Yeah.
And she's got a cool accent.
Yeah. I would
What
say
about
I
you?
like Amanda Satterwhite. And I met her randomly at a boot camp,
She's
and
got
she's
such
like,
a great story.
"What's your sign?" And I'm like, "What's your sign?" But hers was cool because she was still a new practitioner, and I think, like new to medical aesthetics. I think she maybe been open for like 6 months at the time that I interviewed her, and she said in the podcast, like, "I just did everything that AMSPA told me to do, and it all worked out." And it's like, we obviously, you know, working here, we're giving you the tools, we're giving you the resources to make it work, but just to hear her spider web and how things worked out and how she took the resources and made them work for her, I was like, damn, maybe we do have a good product.
Well, especially if you're as like kick-ass as she is, right?
Yeah.
And you can do it.
You have the drive and
Yeah.
I do want to add one more that I just thought of.
Yeah,
This was
throw
like
it in there.
I want to say 18 also. It was the first podcast with LexRx.
Yeah.
And it was in Boston, like in this little pub. We were still drinking during this time. But that was an aha moment for me because I remember, first of all, they were both like 20 years old. But they were nurse practitioners, and they were just so like sophisticated in their idea, and they had built out this platform where we're only doing injectables. We're only doing it for young women, usually, but millennial types. And the fact that they had done that was just, I remember being completely taken aback that I was like, you can do this no matter what. Like you can build whatever you want. And they've of course been back on several times. And
Oh, they're brilliant.
parts of
Wait,
what
I
we
got
do.
a second one like that too.
Let's hear it.
Mine is Sarah Balladaris. I think she was an accountant or something like that, like some office job. And around the age of like 29, 30, she said, I'm going to become a PA now. That's crazy. And now she's like, so I think she's only a couple years older than I am. And she's just killing it. And she speaks, and her education is like amazing. So
I am born and raised in New Orleans. However, I don't live there anymore. I've been practicing for, I don't know how old I am, but I think it's been 7 years. If I had to take a guess, it's 7. Yeah, we're pushing 7. Oh my God. So I have practices in Baton Rouge. I have practices in New Orleans. I have a practice in Ohio. And in the new year, Charlotte, North Carolina's coming. So very
How about
excited.
that?
Yes.
How about that? That's
How about-
hot. That's so exciting.
I know.
Congratulations.
It's a lot, but it's like, I'm ready. It's time.
Okay.
Because I live in Charlotte now. So we moved from Baton Rouge to Charlotte. And, I had Ohio in there, but like I can't leave my patients alone. Like,
Totally.
it's a very toxic relationship on my end where I just need to be with them. So every time I move cities, I just keep going back.
Right.
Super
Right.
toxic. Love it for them.
It's
That's
just the common denominator is the drive, the
Yeah.
drive and kind of taking the ideas and turning them into something as
Yeah.
opposed to just having them. And it's funny, we had just very recently, probably the one right before the one we're doing right now, Kyle Sheely is our keynote for MSS 25, which is coming up April 10th through the 13th in Vegas. Sign up. Yeah, right.
Be there, be
Trademark
square.
by. But please sign up, come see him. But he's incredible. If
Yeah.
you don't get a chance to come, you should hear the podcast. But one of the things that we really kind of dug into, me and you, Alex, was getting out of your own way. And it seems like, LexRx is a perfect example of from the very beginning, they forged their path. They didn't worry about too much of like how the standard way of doing it or
Yeah.
what have you. And just they're in the stratosphere now and continue to.
Yeah.
So the Kyle Sheely one is really great, I think, for everybody to kind of figure out how to continue that path without getting overwhelmed by the hows and even the whys.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So, a good question for both of you. Do you script out your questions? Like, do you have them written out ahead of time, or do you just kind of? Because I don't. I'm just like winging it completely.
I script it out, but there's also like a section that completely changes every time because depending on who the guest, like I'm like, this is the thing that our members, I want to highlight about them. And then I just kind of like do my research behind them and have the questions. But other than
makes
that, the
sense.
rest of it is like pretty scripted. I'm into it.
What
I'm
about you?
I'm a structured girl.
first of all, shout out to Madeline Muller, who helps us so much with our podcast.
She's the goat.
100%.
And Madeline always kind of gives us some questions. So I have those in case things get a little bit slow.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, I just like to have a conversation.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's kind of where you get to the root of things.
Yeah.
But I'm Kathy Christensen, President and CSO of AmSpa. Don't miss Medical Spa Show 2025, April 10th through the 13th at the beautiful Wynn in Vegas. Use code Medical Spa Insider MSS25, all caps, as a promo code when you register at www.medicalspashow.com. See you there.
Promo code expires on April 10, 2025 at 11:59 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Promo code only applies to the primary registrant. Promo code cannot be applied towards additional attendee registration and cannot be combined with any additional offers. Discount only applicable to new MSS 25 registrants. Do you have a favorite question you like to ask? Like, we know Michaela's is about astrology.
Like astrology.
But like, and I almost want to do that, like, because I've done that a few times. Like, what's the show you're streaming? I feel like you get.
Oh,
into
I have that one
and
on mine.
stuff, like, because that really gets to the heart of what people are kind of. Oh, this is what I'm watching, and it's kind of fun. But is there anything you guys like to ask?
I think mine is, what do you do outside of the practice? Because people want to know about their job so much. Like,
Yeah,
who are you outside of your job?
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, I always like to kind of talk about journey and passion a little bit. Like what is the thing that lights you up? I don't know if I've ever actually asked that in that
that's a
in
good
that
question. You
way.
should
Yeah.
ask it just like that. What lights you up?
yeah, but that's ultimately, and you can, that's what happens when you're in a conversation too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
They kind of get there. So
Yeah.
and I'm totally co-opting the hosting duties here,
No,
especially
you're fine.
Michaela, because I have a question for both of you again. When you're doing the member spotlights, which is typically, you're spotlighting a member, what are you trying to get out of that? What do you want people to know and to learn about that person? Because it's different. Like, we often are doing ones where we're really trying to either tackle specific topic
Yeah.
or a person on their journey, and it's related to something. But yours is much more like, this is somebody in our association. What are you trying to get out of it? I'm curious.
Yeah, honestly, after the first one, I kind of thought like what makes our members so special is that everyone has a completely different journey, but they got to like the same goal. And even when I was on the front lines of membership and I was doing social media marketing, everyone was always like, "Oh my gosh, like give me the steps of how to do
Yeah.
it." Even at the boot camps, like people are like, "Well, how did you get there?" And everyone's story was different. So my goal with the membership podcast is always like, you're gonna get there, but the story's gonna be different. And I want like who's ever listening to be like, "Oh, they went on the same journey as me. I should reach out to them," or like, "Oh shoot, okay, so." Like maybe there is a way, like maybe like even in the darkest of times, there's a way to, get to my dream, because at the end of the day, like you win when you open your own med spa, you win when you work at a med spa, you win when you're in this industry. How many nurses are like, doing the bedpans who are like, gosh, I wish like I could be in their position, so.
That reminded me, because when you said you like the journey, that's like, to me, that is what it's about. It's talking about how somebody got there, how they did it. To me, is really cool.
Well, because there's a lot. I mean, I'm sure you guys do the same thing. When we're out in the industry at boot camps, at shows, it's always really interesting to hear the conversations that people are having. And then oftentimes you'll get on a podcast and the advice is right there.
Yeah.
From the person who had it. So I think that's part of it, is to say, like, what would the listener want to know? Like, what are they curious about? What are they troubled by right now? Like,
Yeah. And we know entrepreneurs, like, they tend to just kind of like, oh, I'm dealing with this thing by myself. So I think especially with the podcast, we've been able to help highlight that, like, you're not alone. Like someone else has like gone through this just like you have. Like they've dealt with the ups and downs that you probably have too. So
well, and the one thing is always, and I always say this, like everyone there are a million different ways to do this, but none of them are easy.
Yeah.
Like I feel like sometimes people are looking for a shortcut, or they think it's going to be so, owning your own business is so much better than the hospital, which it depends on what you value, but it's not like it's going to be like a plug and play.
Yeah. Even like the conversations I've had at like boot camp and AIA. I remember one of these injectors from AIA, she's like, "Oh, my boss is like so cool. She told me, because she thought her husband might have to move to Atlanta. And she's like, oh, we're an MP. They, we'll just open up a practice for you and you'll just be like the MD there." And she's like, "I don't want to own." And that's okay.
Yeah.
Like that's okay.
Totally.
Right.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should take like listener questions.
Yeah.
That
That
would
would
be
be
cool.
sick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And some like we'll get an email address. In fact, give them your text message, yourself. Okay.
312. No.
Like it's email. We'll email in some questions, and if any of you have questions about whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could
that'd
have
be
like
fun.
publicize our upcoming guest list.
Totally.
It's a good idea.
Are there any guests that you guys have like unexpectedly had a connection with?
Definitely. And I'm trying to think of exactly who, but for sure. I mean, I think it's almost more surprising when I don't have a connection,
I would agree.
because to me,
I would
it's
agree.
like, it's, especially if you can get into that zone where you're not worried about a Q&A and you're having a conversation and you're just talking, it really becomes very, very easy. I remember doing one with Brian DeRoche a while ago. We were just like, back and forth. We could have talked for hours.
Oh, I love that.
But it's, I normally can connect with somebody. The parts I struggle with are when people are, answering the question and then they're silent.
Yeah, I would agree.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's
I would
like,
agree.
You just got to be like, what next? Like,
You're like
because-
watching the clock tick down.
yeah. But that's happened very, very rarely.
Yeah, I have found that happen sometimes with like services people that I'm talking to.
Okay.
Like, I actually had a great podcast, and heaven help me, I cannot remember the name, but it was recent, and it was with a person in the financial sector, like accounting, taxes.
I remember that.
I'm sure we will figure out the name. Yeah, Joe's looking at me like, I guess so. But it was very cut and dry, and then I asked a question that instantly kind of unlocked him a little bit. And that was when we got going. Then it was just like, I don't know if it was something he was it was a challenge for him or what have you. I can't remember what it was, but yeah, that's rough when it's just question and answer. That's how it is on panels too. When it's just like, my favorite treatment is injectables.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, no, just keep talking.
Give me something.
Are you still drinking during your podcast, Michaela?
No.
Not right now.
You know what? Now that we're doing the memberships, I don't know words today. Now that we're doing the membership spotlights at the practice, you know,
that cuts down on
they've chilled out a little bit. I think the last one I drank at was when we did when we went to the Burbs, another interior designer.
Yes.
Michelle Palafas. Yeah, and she.
That was fun. That was a good one.
Well,
too.
I met her at a conference, and we bonded over like crispy Savvy B. And I've had the lightest breakfast, and she said, "What if I had all these bottles and a charcuterie board?" Let the world know charcuterie boards do not fill you up when you're drinking.
No, that was a fun one.
Let the world know.
And then he throws me on the podcast. He's like, "Wait. You guys are cool. Maybe you should get on here." And I'm like, well, thank God I ask the same questions all the time. So they're
in there,
burned in my brain. Yeah.
Yeah, that was fun. That was a good time. Yeah, I feel like drinking makes it better.
Yeah, I think
But
so.
also
maybe,
worse.
Maybe we just think that because we're having more fun.
It just opens people up.
Ain't no party like an AMSPA party.
I mean, that's true.
Gets the conversation.
Is there anyone's story that you've seen develop that you're like, man, that's so cool. I'm glad. Like you mentioned Shelby Miller. Is there anyone else that you're like, man, I'm glad I got them on the ground floor?
LexRx was that way too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm
for
still.
sure.
Those are two people that I just watch from afar.
Okay.
And I'm like, damn, they
Yeah, I
are
agree with
just
that.
amazing.
That is really cool. Courtney Andreesen was one that I remember.
Courtney Anderson.
Yeah.
Courtney Anderson. Good Lord, I've got something wrong with me. But just to anyone from the state of Utah.
No, literally. Why are they all ballers?
Not
State
only
of
that, but they're
Utah.
gorgeous ballers.
It's
Gorgeous
amazing.
ballers.
Yes. So cool.
Yeah.
All of them are. It really is amazing. But seeing what they have done, and there's different people from different areas. It doesn't matter where you are in Utah.
Yeah.
You can have an amazing med spa, and it's really cool to watch them.
Yeah, Courtney Anderson, she was one of the first people I interviewed who I didn't know, because most of the people I kind of had a little bit of relationship with, and she doesn't drink.
I know.
And it was after the happy hour at boot camp, and I said, all right, serious face on. But even Tracy Andreessen, I had her as well. And I mean,
That's who it was Andreesen.
the Utah ladies, they're just ballers.
Yeah,
they kill it.
They make it
they're
happen.
Always in top gear.
Yes.
Always.
Yes.
It's amazing. Shout out to Utah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have to say, one of the people that really, really impressed me, and this is probably no surprise, but there are a lot of folks in our industry that are amazing at what they do.
Mm-hmm.
But Dr. K, to me,
Yeah, it's awesome.
the amount of time that I have spent with her one-on-one isn't a ton, but I am so impressed by her she is a student
She just drives.
of she absolutely has her practice, but beyond that, I've had conversations with her where she's quoting the white paper that she read from she is just constantly learning. It's not,
Awesome.
it's there in no way is it an act. She is
Yeah.
aesthetic medical professional of the top degree. So I'm always just kind of amazed at her.
Plus, she has a group of people that follow her around.
Yeah.
Record her everything, which is always amazing.
And she's,
Taking notes and-
she's amazing.
Yeah.
She's one of those people that I'm like, you are the real deal. You
Yeah,
Yeah.
get
she
this.
is.
Yeah.
I felt that way about Brad Crerer, and I really hope I'm not mispronouncing his name, but that was the guy in New York. He said,
Yeah.
Who said, tall drink of water? I go, he has a wife and kids. He's a nice man. First of all, he said the funniest thing. He goes, oh, yeah, I could never go to medical spa show. I always get the virtual education after party because you don't want me in Vegas.
Oh, no.
Oh, but we do.
But
We
he's like a business guy.
Yeah.
He's like a real
On the
he's,
business side,
Yeah, he's
right.
he is a practitioner, but he was like, yep, I'm getting my MBA. I've always wanted to do this. And he's like, and I've just made the steps to get there and make it happen. And we were just flowing. I was afraid because I don't think I've interviewed any men. I think he was the first man. So I was like, okay, I want to be on my best behavior.
We're going to have to fix that, Michaela. That's discrimination.
But he recommended the Mezcal bar across the street. Went there afterwards.
Of course you did.
He had Drake playing. I love Drake. But it was awesome to get the flow. And I tell all my guests all the time, they're so nervous. And I'm like, hey, just so you know, this is a conversation.
Yep.
Like anything I throw at you, throw it right back at me. And he was one of the first people to be like, and what do you think? And I was like, oh, shit. I was like, oh, I'm ready now.
Yeah.
All he had to say was mezcal.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's the word.
Yeah, that's cool. Brandon Robinson was a good one. Remember
I
back in the
missed
day?
that.
I missed
And
that too.
Jenny.
Yes.
Yeah. I owe you guys a phone call. It's coming.
They have 2 babies now, 2
I
children.
know.
Yeah.
That was awesome. Yeah, but it's interesting to see. I wish I had like a timeline of like life. Like what was the aesthetic market truly like back in
Yes.
2018, 2017 when
Yeah.
we started? There was things that weren't, there was no GLP-1s.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I don't even know if there was cool sculpting at that point. Like
I mean,
maybe
we
there
were
was,
talking
like,
about what's the brow one?
Microblading.
Microblading back
Right.
in
That's right.
2019,
Right.
That's right.
2018.
That's
Who's
right.
talking about that?
Yeah.
No, like it would be interesting to see what. I mean, it's everything. It's totally different.
It is.
Yeah.
Totally
Well, that's the
different
thing about
environment.
this industry is it does not stay the same.
No.
What are you looking forward to in the coming?
Oh, you know what I'm looking forward to? I wanted to, one of my other favorite podcasts that we turned into a podcast was Sarah Blakely at Walk.
Mhm.
Yeah.
There are moments that I pinch myself that actually happened because she's such an amazing person. And the
Yeah.
fact that we have that on a podcast.
That was awesome. People should go back and listen.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm going to
So
go back and
cool.
listen to it because I still can't believe it happened. It was so amazing.
Yeah.
Whole way I was just like, I don't know what I'm doing and then once I landed Neiman's, they put me in 7 stores and I called every friend I had in those 7 cities, people I hadn't talked to in years. I'm like, hey, it's Sarah. We sat next to each other in 4th grade. Right. So I've created this product called Spanx. Will you please go buy it? Act like you've been looking for it your whole life and I'll mail you a check. I really did. I paid all my friends to buy Spanx. And then Oprah called because I had sent her some and then I got on the Oprah show as her favorite product. Oh, you have to tell us more about that. That was amazing. I mean, I sent the product to her and in a gift basket and she tried it on while she was getting ready and became a huge Spanx fan and decided to put it on her favorite things show, which as an entrepreneur sitting in my apartment in Atlanta with no money to advertise, that was like, ah. And the Oprah show called and they said, Sarah, Oprah doesn't put people on her favorite things show. It's just about the product. But she's heard that you're taking on billion-dollar companies as this girl in your apartment, and she wants to highlight your story. Can we fly to Atlanta and film you a little bit? And she's going to show like a 1.5 or 2 minute reel of you. I was like, yes, okay. And they showed up at my apartment, and they're like, we want to film you in your headquarters. I was like, you're there. You're here. And they looked around, there were boxes everywhere, and they were like, oh, okay. And then they go, and we also decided on the plane, we want to film you having a staff meeting as part of the clip. I was like, okay, hold on. So I called Connie that I'd met at Mailboxes, etc., because I'd been faxing a lot of Spanx out. And I'm like, Connie, can you be at my apartment in 5 minutes and look like you work for me? And she's like, I'm on my way. And then a few of my friends got out of work and came over, and we sat in a circle on the floor of my apartment, and that was my staff meeting. I love it. You gotta just fumble your way through it. The thing about being entrepreneurs and business owners is like, you can't wait till you're ready. You're never ready. You can't wait for the right time. There's never really an exact right time. And being an entrepreneur is like jumping off a cliff and assembling the plane on the way down. Like, it just is. You're just like, here we go. I don't know what I'm doing. And so I still feel that way, even all these years later. So it's about having the confidence to just take that next step and say, the people who I need are going to appear. I'm going to figure this out.
And as you know, we have Walk coming up again this year.
Yeah.
We're about to start registration. Jamie Kern-Lima from It Cosmetics is our keynote.
Oh, it's a slay. I use her sunscreen, so.
Yes.
Thanks,
she
girl.
has the best. Yeah, it's amazing. But yeah, I think about the fact that she kind of graced us with her presence and
Right.
so down to earth and so much business knowledge. And yeah, so I'm looking forward to this year's walk, and hopefully Jamie will let us.
She will.
Yeah, no problem.
Just say mezcal.
Yeah, maybe we'll have Michaela take her to the mezcal bar.
They got you something.
What about you? Is it something you're looking forward to?
I
or something you
think-
want to do with a podcast?
What I want to do with the podcast.
Like on a roller coaster or an airplane?
Oh boy.
No, I think like right now, at least with the podcast, like it's just fun. Like it's just interesting finding all these people. And now it's gotten to a point where like when I started, no one really knew who I was. And now like people know who I am. So I reach out and they're like, oh my God, this is so cool. And I'm like, I'm just a girl, guys. But I think I'm looking most forward to is just all the like up and coming people. I mean, the people who were like, this is who you need to know. Like now they've like become like kind of the elders of the industry in like the least derogatory way. And we have all these newcomers coming through and we have all these new technologies and treatments. And so it's just been, I'm excited to see more of that come, the different way that people are pairing treatments together to get different outcomes, like the way that we're leaning more into wellness now with medical aesthetics. Yeah, I just like love seeing all the new faces, all the people killing it. I mean, they were people who started their practice in 2021 and like where they are now, and we can't stop talking about them and thinking about them. So definitely just all the new people we don't even know about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like you mentioned Shelby Miller, seeing where she's been, where she is, and then there's someone right now.
Right.
There's the
Yeah.
next Shelby Miller is just getting started somewhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, and we should, you know, what you do with the member spotlight, if you are a member of AmSpa and want to be in the member spotlight, just email Michaela at americanmedspa.org
Hit me up.
and we'll get you on because I think that'd be fun too.
Yeah.
And then I would love to get more personalized questions from listeners, what they want to hear. I'm still pushing for a new name. Medical Spa Insider doesn't do it
Okay. A rebrand 2020,
for me. Yeah, I'm not liking it.
maybe 6.
But then again, here we are.
Okay, top 3 episodes. Everyone go.
Ugh.
I know. And then in Blair Boy, it was your favorite. This one, boom.
First of all, I'm just going to go with one, and it's one that was not published.
Oh,
I
And it
know
was
which one
the
he's gonna
Medical Spa
say.
Show 2023.
Oh, the roulette.
And that was so, I thought it was so fun. And
When it was wild.
and we never got it published.
Wild.
And
It was
that's a shame.
wackadoodle.
And now
Yeah.
it's been deleted
That
forever.
was.
wild.
So that'll always go down, and none of you will ever get to hear it.
I was
So,
like Vanna for that.
yeah,
You were the roller.
Yeah,
Were
I
you
was
the
rolling the roulette.
it
Yeah.
was funny. And it was because it was just kind of random, and it was cool. And we had
So
a good
random.
panel. We had Julie Bass Kaplan, who will say anything.
Anything.
Yeah.
And I think, from what I recall, she gave us all COVID from that.
Yeah.
Yeah, she did actually.
But that's all right.
We love you, Julie.
Yeah, she's awesome.
Julie for life.
So what else? What about you?
Yeah.
We kind of talked about it, but what do you think?
Oh, for me,
Favorite?
golly, I don't know. I really enjoy them all. I'd say top 3. I mean, Sarah Blakely is going to be,
Yeah.
even though I had like no interviewing, I did help with the questions. I was just kind of like the
Yeah. Yep.
Cyrano de Bergerac.
Yeah.
I'm like, ask her. And I really, the Shelby Miller one I liked, and Dr. K from last year, where she was talking about one of the things about that one, we did it at MSS 24, and we were talking about longevity medicine.
Yeah.
She's like, next year, I want to do a biohacking beauty track.
Slay.
And guess what? She is. She actually is moderating that and built it, and we're all super excited about it. So don't miss it at MSS 25.
Be there and be
What
square.
about you?
Be there or be.
Top 3.
Courtney Anderson. I mean, that girl's story is like insane. Like,
She always wears a hat.
The hats.
she always has the hats, and the photo shoots are
Yes.
always baller. Cameron Moskis. I mean, that really jumpstarted our friendship, and it's cool to see her career and where it's at now. And then Brad. Damn it! I'm sorry if I'm
Is it
mispronouncing your name.
Sarar?
I think it's Crerer.
Okay.
Crerer. Yeah, because I heard it on the podcast
Ah,
earlier.
gotcha.
And then I have an honorable mention for the podcast drive-bys. I basically stole Alex's idea and made it better.
That's what it's all
Because
about.
he podcasted at the booth, but then I got multiple. So it was like cool to just like have all those people stop by the booth, and we were just like podcasting, and we had like a little special series.
So
and
cute.
we were just on the floor at Medical Spa Show, like, yeah, I'm about to act up. We were like, oh, I love craps. And like, you know, they're like, oh, I love seeing this person. And it was a cool way for people to see like what it's like at Medical Spa Show from people who were there at that moment. So
You should do one at the party on Friday night.
at the club,
The club.
So
Yeah.
I'll be at the club
Joe
doing
says
club
yes.
activities. So,
Michaela's like, I'm off.
right,
that
I'm
night.
off at
Yeah.
that. But if you want to come by the booth at Medical Spa Show 2025, let's get it popping.
Yes. But at the party, she won't be recording.
At the party, I will have a drink with you.
Yes, yes.
It'll be off the record.
No, we'll get those.
Oh, that's what it should be called. That's what our
Yes.
podcast should be called.
Yeah,
we'll
off
get
the record.
We'll get the meta glasses and we'll just record it.
I'll get a
that's still a
GoPro and
thing.
put it on my head.
Yeah, that would be weird.
Yeah, it's been cool though. I mean, for 300, I honestly never thought we'd.
Never.
That wasn't.
Yeah.
That's not part of the plan. So, but here we are, and you guys have been great too, because like I couldn't do all this by myself. My God, and I'm not that interesting. So it's been great to have some help. And I do think there's others here in our office that I would love to get on the podcast more, because I think there's so much talent and knowledge in here, and then anyone on the outside too. Like we would love,
Yeah.
like the more perspective we can get,
Yes.
the better. I think
Yeah.
would be so cool. So if you want to be on, again, email Michaela.
Hit me up.
Or if you know of topics you want or people that are interesting or
Yeah.
challenges you're having, like, our goal always is to serve our people, serve our members, serve our attendees. Like, if there's something you're stuck with or something you like, let us help you try to figure it out. And podcast is a fun way to do it. So
Yeah.
I'll never forget before we end, right when we started the podcast, I'll never forget. I got like an email from someone that was like, the podcast was really good, but I was listening to it in the car with my 5-year-old in the back. And that was back when like Alex was swearing
I
like
thought it
a
was me.
sailor.
That was
No, it was
that
Alex.
was the beta version.
I was just like, oh my God.
Oh,
Alex,
Madeline-
maybe you should watch your
Yeah, that
Madeline
was alcohol.
puts the explicit on all mine. No, we never know.
Yeah,
I think
it
the worst
was-
I say is damn now. I've stopped saying the F word.
Yeah, but that was so funny. She's like, it was great. But
Yeah, I remember those first few were
well, it
were
may
naughty.
have been the drinks.
Yeah.
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 They were not
Yeah.
fit for children. But that's good though. It's fun. Well, awesome.
All right.
Thank y'all for listening
Any-
to our
any other-
shenanigans.
Yes. Thank you. Here's to 300 more.
300 more.
Oh boy. Yes,
Yeah.
300 more. That just seems like a lot.
And all my baddies that joined me. I love you guys.
That's
You're the
awesome.
best.
Yeah, thank you all so much. It's been fun. It's been fun, and it will be fun
Yeah.
for the rest of time.
Rest of time. Yikes.
And cut.
Bye.
We'd like to thank those who make and have made the Medical Spa Insider podcast possible. Previous producers include Eric Atienza, who is currently AmSpa's Assistant Director of Digital Marketing and Marketing Technology, and Ali Kagi, who is currently our Senior Manager of Brand Marketing, and Terry Christensen, who did our audio editing and mixing. Thank you to producers Madeline Mahler, Marketing Content Coordinator, who organizes, schedules, and handles our guests, provides topics, talking points, and guest bios to our hosts. And myself, Joe de Guzman, Technology Operations Assistant Manager. I handle the audio and video editing, voiceovers, and tech. Kate Harper, Digital Marketing Coordinator, who makes all of our graphics and manages the podcast platform. Esme Uriostegui, Senior Social Media Coordinator, who makes and posts all the clips of the podcast to our social feeds. Our music is by Ghost Score. Thank you for listening to or watching the Medical Spa Insider podcast. Please follow or subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for future episodes. For more information about the American Med Spa Association, please check our show notes or in the description below.